Hello. Hi, I'm Giles Perkins, Head of Future Mobility for WSP and also the Programme Director for Adept Live Labs, the £23 million investment from the Department for Transport that's looking to accelerate innovation in local roads. Sat alongside me at our virtual fireplace is Jason Pavey, Market Director for Local Transport from Atkins and one of our commissioning board members. And today we're talking to Central Bedfordshire. So we welcome Paul. Paul, could you introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hello, I'm Paul Mason. I'm the Chief Highways Officer at Central Bedfordshire Council and Project Manager for this particular project.
Fantastic. Could you, Central Bedfordshire is quite interesting, the Live Labs, because it's largely focused on energy. Can you explain what the Live Lab's doing, how you're going about it, and what you hope to achieve?
Certainly, yes. Central Bedfordshire were keen on how we could utilise our assets to generate power. And we were very excited by the offer from Ringway Jacobs, our term service contractor, who are a partner in the programme. And they suggested that we get involved in this opportunity. And we are using it for three particular strands of smart energy. That's kinetic, geothermal and solar. Each of those have a programme of installation, and we're going to use the opportunity to check the efficiency of the energy production, as well as how they perform in a live environment in terms of maintenance and whether we can scale them up and roll them out across our business and become business as usual.
So from what I understand, the three projects are quite different. Could you give a little bit of detail for the viewers on what each one has got and kind of how it's constituted?
Yes, the kinetic one is a kinetic pavement, so it captures footfall. So it needs to be in an area where you've got obviously a large footfall. For us, the logical place was to put it outside a station concourse. We could then utilise the energy that was produced to drive things like smart benches and information boards. We've got it so that it can drive information about real time for buses and the train information at the same time.
And that's at Leighton Buzzard station?
It's at Leighton Buzzard. Initially we were going to do it at Flitwick, but logistically we couldn't get it in. We've got another big programme of work there and it didn't work out. So we used an alternative location of Leighton Buzzard. That is going in next month. So there's a frame to be installed and then the tiles go on and then it'll be live very shortly after that. The second project is geothermal. That's 150 metre bore holes into the ground. There's an energy connector that then allows the heat to be turned into, well, in our case, two things. One is for de-icing the car park, and the second one is to assist in the heating of an adjacent building. We were originally going to use that on a live road, but in conjunction with talking to the providers and all of the stats and the opportunities for digging roads up, it became obvious that it's actually not a good location, and therefore we are using it in a depot, a Thornton depot, and it's likely that actually it's more useful for new builds, schools and that sort of thing. So in the future, we've got a large building schools for the future programme, and we'd like to be able to roll it into that program.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it could be where you haven't got the utilities worries, or if you design it in from day one. So it's that kind of thinking about the whole life cycle.
Absolutely, certainly retrofitting it is not ideal. Fitting it in right from day one, as you say, is the best solution. And then our third strand is solar. We've got solar panels that are being bonded to a carriageway. Again, we were going to use this out on a live project we got on the A421 between near Milton Keynes. We were going to use it on a length of footway, but the problem with that was storing the energy and the batteries required. Not that it's insurmountable, but it just made the project very expensive, and therefore we chose a new location where we can use the energy immediately, and we're putting it in to support the lighting of the office building, again at Thorn Depot. It gives us the opportunity to be able to manage it and observe it in a real life situation. So it'll be out with heavy vehicles tracking over it, and we're keen to understand how that how that works in practice. So for us, the sort of common strand between the three is how efficient they are in working, and then how they are used in day-to-day life and how robust they are, how they stand up to winter gritting, the weather, just general dirt and detritus, and whether or not the cleaning regimes have to be particularly onerous. That's where we're interested. And then we've got a connection into Cranfield University, and they're providing an academic overview, again, really so that we can capture what we've learnt for the benefit of others who may want to do something similar elsewhere in the country. So we can develop standard details, standard connections, standard specifications, really.
Yeah, that's great, Paul. Maybe I'll just jump in a couple of questions. If we have time at the end, I'd be interested to see what a smart bench is, by the way. But I was just interested. So some of the sort of kinetic and solar. There's two parts to the question, I guess. One is, what will the end user what would that feel like to them? What will they see that's different on the network? And then this next question actually is if that becomes appealing, particularly solar and kinetic energy from pedestrian movements and cycleways, etc. Do you see any benefit or nudges towards modal shift and getting people out of cars out of interest?
If I'm honest, I'm not sure putting these out are going to be the key driver for those changes in behaviour. The solar one, there's obviously we have a very large horizontal asset, or predominantly horizontal asset, which is great for us to capture the solar energy. How it's used, that's part of what we want to discover. What's the best way of using this going forward? Clearly there's energy there, but as I mentioned before, it's whether we can store it and transfer it efficiently, whether we can use it immediately for such things like VMS signs, and maybe autonomous vehicle, 5G rollout, that kind of thing might be able to use the energy. So I think it's not going to drive behavioural change. I think that's slightly different with the kinetic one. The kinetic one, because it's something a little bit different, we are using it as, certainly within central Bedfordshire, we're using it as an opportunity to ramp up what we're doing around sustainability. And although we didn't start this project with it linked to our sustainability plan, it's certainly become one of the first and key features that we're rolling out now, and is generating interest for us throughout central Bedfordshire. And although it's driving a smart bench, you ask about a smart bench, I think the real benefit for this one is if it's driving real-time passenger information, it's at the point between at a network hub between rail, bus, public transport and vehicles, and walking on foot, then it's an opportunity to put some messaging out there that's driven by the kinetic walkway, and it could be saying, you've generated X amount of energy, and the information you're now receiving is being driven by your own footsteps. So I think it's more about raising awareness probably than a massive rollout that you're going to see kinetic walkways throughout central Bedfordshire.
Just following up on that kinetic, obviously it's at a railway station, so Network Rail and the train operator are involved, which is fascinating. One could envisage kind of, and you touched before on detailing, how's that going with the TOC and Network Rail in terms of that delivery? Because it's an interesting interface within the local authority world, that it's a major asset owner in their own right. Their asset is huge across the UK. How's that been going over the life of the project?
Well, Network Rail have been very keen. They have their own innovation champion, and they've been keen to understand what we're doing and what we're rolling out. In terms of just getting permissions to go on there, we've had the usual exchanges of emails and conversations about licensing and making sure everyone's safe and it's rolled out and there is no risk involved. But they're very keen to understand what we're doing and whether it's going to be successful. I couldn't say that they're going to put that in every single station at this point in
clearly.
time. But
Pilot, yes.
Yeah, as a pilot, absolutely. So yeah, no, they're interested, is what I would say.
Just another question from me. Could you give the viewers, thinking about Thornton Depot, just a bit of a description as to the sorts of vehicles and movements that are in there, just to give people an idea of what we're talking about? Because you've got two installations there in terms of the geothermal and the solar in a large highways depot. If you just give us a bit of context as to what's actually happening at the depot, that might help people understand the opportunity here.
Absolutely. The depot is obviously a live environment. We run out our full highway service from there. We have one other satellite depot in central Bedfordshire. So this Thornton is the main one. The majority of our winter fleet is sat there. The Ringway Jacobs have their operations and their vehicles running out of that depot. We have our main southern hub for passenger transport, so all the passenger transport vehicles run out of that depot as well. And there is an office for over 100 people within the depot as well. So we have car parking and car movements.
So it's every type of vehicle, from heavy goods to specialist plant,
absolutely,
to minibuses to cars and vans.
Absolutely, which is why we partly why we chose it, really. Because we wanted to see how it operated, and it's in a controlled environment. That's partly what drove us to go there in the end, rather than the two live roads that we picked originally for the project.
That's great. And Paul, obviously we've been some challenges around COVID-19 and where we've been as a country, let alone a sector. Just interested in when might you get some indication of how the trials are going, and whether you've got any front runners.
So in terms of, you're right, COVID-19 has been a bit of a challenge. Two of the projects, the solar and the geothermal, the manufacturers are in Europe, and they've been shut down, and we haven't been able to get access to those materials. So we have been delayed in our rollout. And the teams that we're going to install can't be brought over, so they've had to find something in the UK. And funnily enough, and we haven't got to the bottom of this yet, there's quite a difference in the costs in a UK company putting some of these things in compared to those in Europe. So that's part of what we would like to explore about why it's so different. But yeah, in terms of materials, that's an issue. For the solar panels, there's a weather window as well, and we've managed to miss the weather window again this year, partly because the tiles are manufactured in France, and we couldn't get them over in the time to get them laid out. So we're now waiting for that to be installed March, April time, when the weather warms up and the humidity is okay for the bonding and the adhesives that are used in that particular trial.
Yeah, no, thanks, Paul. It's challenging times, but great to see. We're progressing and driving forward. And just to build on that, the live labs, is all about how we try and drive innovation and create, I guess, the right culture to try things. Really, I was just interested. Your reflections. You've talked about a lot of partners. You've just talked about some supply chain in Europe. What's felt different about live labs to perhaps how we would traditionally try and do some of these types of services?
Well, that live labs has given us a great opportunity actually to engage with a number of people that we probably wouldn't normally get involved with in our business as usual, and it's released some of the constraints that we've had. We have had issues, some issues with procurement and just being able to justify what we're doing. But we've managed to get over that hurdle, but it's given us that opportunity to try something new and just go and approach people and talk to them and get the best people in to solve problems and to solve them together. We're always working collaboratively in the industry, but this has been a sort of breath of fresh air. Everyone's been let's work out how we can get these things in, make the best use of the funding that's been provided and made available, such that we can roll it out for the widest number of people in the industry. So the approach has been really, really refreshing and helpful.
Fantastic. So final quick question from me. Any advice for other local authorities considering innovation?
I was going to be flippant and say don't do it, but I would suggest the opposite. I would say embrace it fully, take the opportunities. Maybe just keep the boundaries fairly tight in what you're trying to achieve, such that you can take small steps rather than trying to bite off too much in one go. So if you've got it relatively tightly bound, you can understand what it is you've got and exactly where the issues lie. That was really why we in Central Bedfordshire picked the smart energy. We could see it as a very well bounded project, and for me that seems to be the right approach.
Fantastic. Thank you, Paul. Thank you, Jason. If anybody wants to find out more about Adept Live Labs, just Google Adept Live Labs, where you'll find our white papers, which are discussing progress, the end of year report, blogs, news articles, all sorts of content, which is continually being released. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you.
Thank you.